How is it going, everyone? Welcome to Nick at Night, my weekly non-spoiler comic book review show. I just got done reading all my books. It was a heck of a week. I'll let you know what I thought about it coming up next. Stick around. All right, guys, welcome back to Nick at Night, my non-spoiler comic book review show. Thank you very much. If you're not subbed up yet, please consider hitting that sub button or like and share. It really does go a long way. Let's get into the big two, as we always do, starting with Jane Foster, The Mighty Thor, issue number 1. So this issue of Mighty Thor, I went ahead and took a chance on it. I just love that Peach Momoko cover, and I wanted to see if it was going to be any good. I'm not exactly familiar with Jane Foster as Thor. I mean, I know the concept. I know some of the classic battles and things like that. I know kind of what she's been up to and how she became Thor for a moment. But this was an interesting issue because it opens up and it's not necessarily about Jane Foster being Thor, right? And so it has this other thing. She's kind of like a Valkyrie. Has a very interesting mission with a few other Avenger type people in the very beginning. And I thought it was pretty interesting to see her power set. So it doesn't really jump right in as her as Thor or holding Mjolnir or anything like that, but it builds into that. Now, I don't exactly know where this fits in the current continuity of Thor itself. They allude to Thor being in some kind of trouble. They really can't see him anymore. They don't know where he is. He's kind of captured or something like that. He's depowered in a way. And maybe that's coinciding with what's going on in the most recent Thor issues with Banner of War. It doesn't feel that way, but there's a little bit of a bread trail to suggest that Thor is just in a bad way right now. And so they have to rely on Jane Foster to kind of take over the mantle because all these armies are coming in and they're going to be a big problem for Asgard very, very soon. So this issue was way better than I thought it was going to be. I didn't know what to expect. Again, I just got it as a cover grab. And then I read it and I was like, wow, this is actually pretty good. The art's pretty interesting, lots of color. The dialogue is really believable. And I did like everything in this book. So we do get a little glimpse of her kind of fully powered, ready to take on whatever threats. We do have some other allies kind of teaming up to take on whatever threats are coming towards Asgard right now. And we have a really cool villain that you see towards the end of the book that's helping kind of orchestrate this entire thing. And she has a real selfish reason for wanting to make all this kind of stuff happen. So I liked it. It was way better than I thought it was going to be. I enjoyed the art. I enjoyed the dialogue. I liked the narrative. I don't quite know where it fits in continuity at the moment, but I don't care. It was actually way better than I thought it was going to be. So Jane Foster, Mighty Thor number 1, you might want to check that one out. So keeping it in the Thor theme right now, we're going to jump over to Donnie Cates' Thor issue number 26. So we are still in the Banner of War. This is actually part 4 of that. It's hard not to give away any spoilers, but you see on the cover here, you see a Thor Hulk kind of combination, or a Hulk Thor in a way here. We had some unfortunate events happen in the previous issue of Hulk, which led into this like amalgamation of character right here. And so we have to deal with that at the moment. It looks like he's smashing the Rainbow Bridge here. Lots of foreshadowing, lots of spoilers right here on the cover itself. So I'm not going to give away anything that you haven't seen on the cover of the comic at all. But it's Donnie Cates doing some crazy stuff, man. So I feel like I'm reading Thor and I'm reading Hulk, and I'm just kind of sitting back and just enjoying the ride for right now. Is it absurd? Absolutely. Is it going to like hurt a lot of fanboys' feelings and people who've loved both of these characters and know everything about them? And yeah, it's going to make those people upset. I think they're playing with some concepts that we thought were constants. Mjolnir's got some issues going on right now that Donnie Cates has explored. He's kind of taken that concept and kind of twisted it a little bit. He destroyed it. He brought it back. There's a new being inside of it. It's pretty interesting. Now he's playing with some of the other pieces of lore in the Thor in the Asgard world in this book, which I think is pretty interesting. He definitely likes to shake things up, I would say. Awesome battles. We have Iron Man in here trying to hold his own with his crazy tech. We have Thor. We have Hulk, we have Odin, just this constant crazy battle and things like that. And we just have these insane character moments that are just, what Donnie Cates does best. So if you've been liking what you've been reading so far in Banner of War, this is just going to be another good issue in that run. If you hated the whole Hulk concept with his, engine room Hulk and spaceship Hulk and all that stuff, you're probably going to hate this one too. So figure out where you sit. Which side of the fence do you sit on? Do you enjoy the ride so far? or did you dismiss it early on? If you enjoyed the ride, I think you'll like this one. If you dismissed it, just stay away from these until this whole thing is over, I would say. But I like it. It's pretty cool. It's absurd. It's crazy. It's Donnie Cates. What'd you expect? Thor, 26, not too bad. Next Marvel book we're going to go over is Venom, issue number 8. And Al Ewing is on this one with art by Brian Hitch. Again, this is issue number 8. We have Kang on the cover, seemingly splitting Venom right in half with some kind of sword on the cover right here. So I didn't quite know what to expect. I'm really not enjoying this run, honestly. We're on issue number 8 now. Even the Rom V issues they just seem a little bit like kind of who cares in a way. You know what I mean? We have Dylan as Venom on Earth right now. He doesn't know what happened to Dad. He thinks he might be dead. We have Eddie with his symbiote suit now, still kind of playing the King in Black kind of a role, but he's kind of in this other zone right now. He's kind of being held captured by Meridius. He does some internal meditation kind of stuff, and he's transported to a different time and place and meets up with Kang, and they have a really interesting conversation. Can he trust him? Can he not? All those kinds of things. Of course, Kang's an interesting character. I liked him in this issue a lot. I did like all the little dialogue that they have and some of the manipulation that he may have been trying to play on Venom here on Eddie Brock. I do like that. And then we kind of meet the Puppet Master again towards the end of the book and trying to push Eddie in the right direction. Again, I don't really know what we're doing in this book. I don't like the Meridius character. Kang was an interesting and kind of a breath of fresh air in the series, I think, in general. But I don't like the art. I don't know where the story's going. We're on issue number 8. Man, I just really wish I liked this book more than I do. I don't know. I think Carnage is the better symbiote book at the moment, but we're only about 3 issues into that one, and Rom V's on that one. I think the art's better as well. But Venom number 8 hasn't sold me yet, and I really haven't met too many people that are just blown away by this series yet, especially coming off of the last Venom run and then King of Black. It's just not really doing it for me just yet. I feel like I need to keep going though. Maybe give it some more time to evolve. But let me know what you guys are thinking about Venom issue number 8. All right, the next Marvel book we read was Amazing Spider-Man issue number 3. We have Zeb Wells and John Romita Jr. on this one. I think I mentioned this on issue number 2. I didn't really like issue number 1. They did a little bit of a time jump in that issue and that everybody seemed to hate him. It was just such a depressing issue. Peter just can never find happiness. Even Aunt May's pissed off at him. And then Mary Jane kind of moved on. She's got like these adoptive kids or something like that. It just didn't make any sense. I didn't quite know what was going on there. Issue number 2 did step it up a little bit with some more fights and things like that. And then Tombstone's in here. He messed up some of Tombstone's goons. They were trying to make some kind of a deal. And he's getting his revenge in this issue. So it's really awesome, I think. Lots of action. It's really cruel and brutal in this issue. The dude's kind of a menace. And Peter's in a way. He's in a way right now, and I'm not entirely sure how he's going to get out of there. We do get a little bit of an origin story with Tombstone as well, which I think is pretty cool. I like the way that they portrayed that in here. And then there's also kind of a holy crap, what are they going to do now? Kind of a moment towards the end. Yeah, Peter's in trouble, man. Tombstone ripping apart this mask is it's some foreshadowing for sure. So I've been liking these so far. I really liked issue number 2. I like issue number 3. If you fell off in issue number 1 because you didn't like what's happening, you were too confused, I would check out 2 and 3 and then keep going with it. Yeah, Amazing Spider-Man. I'm glad I'm on this one. I do like it more than I like the Beyond arc, which was the last run on ASM. I would check this one out. Not too bad. All right, so that was it with Marvel. We're going to jump over into DC books next with Batman Proper 124. And this issue was actually written by Joshua Williamson and art by Howard Porter and Jorge Fornes and Mori on the colors. I feel like this wasn't needed at all. So this whole run between Tynan and our next team that's coming up very soon, we don't need this. We didn't need this run. We had the Abyss that was introduced. That was a character that kind of came and went. There was really nothing going on there. Then we had the tie-in for Shadow War. Didn't really need that. I will say the art in those later issues was really, really good, but the stories weren't that great. And so these are basically just filler issues to give the next team some time to get their stuff straight, I think. That's how it's kind of reading right now. So in this last issue that Williamson's reading, we do touch base with Abyss again, and it's not exactly what you think it is. People were saying, oh, he's back, and it's going to be the big conclusion and everything. Well, kind of, not really. I will say the art is really, really cool. I wouldn't mind seeing this art in Batman kind of going forward, but I know who we're going to get next, and so I would rather take that. Again, we get some little hints from Batman. It's like, well, you know, how did you stay so pure? How did you not like pull the trigger and really go off on the deep end and stuff? So we take several pages to kind of revisit all that nonsense that we've revisited so many times before. It's a filler issue. If you're collecting all the Batman stuff, go ahead and pick it up, check it out, enjoy the art. Maybe you'll pick something up in the story here and there. I would say the more interesting part is the photosynthesis from G. Willow Wilson. In the back, it's the other story. Danny's on the art, which is really great. And it's the lead in for Poison Ivy. So Poison Ivy #1 came out this week as well. I'll get to that one in a few minutes. And this is kind of the lead in story with like the gardener. And it kind of sets her on her path that leads into issue #1 of Poison Ivy. So I would read this one first, and then I would read Poison Ivy. But yeah, Batman 124, it's just a filler issue. You don't really need to read it. Not a whole lot goes on. We've seen everything that happens in this book already. So, but I would check out the Poison Ivy backstory, but it's probably not worth, you know, cover price just for that little snippet. So staying in the Batman universe, we have Flashpoint Beyond issue #2 from Jeff Johns, and I'm absolutely loving this book. And what I really enjoy about this book is the story reminds me so much, obviously, of Flashpoint. That was a really fun ride. This is kind of like a what if. What if they didn't set everything straight? What if Barry Allen was never kind of woken back up again and they kind of set everything straight? Everything's kind of going to hell still, but Thomas Wayne still knows what should have happened in Flashpoint, and it hasn't happened in this universe, and he's trying to figure out why that is. And every time he goes down a path where he thinks he can get some answers, something's taken away, someone is killed, someone is murdered, and he's on this like double detective mission. Who else knows that the universe is not right, and who's trying to stop him from figuring all this out? And as you can see on the cover, we have Thomas Wayne and we have Psycho Pirate on here, so he's the next person to kind of help Thomas try to figure out what exactly is going on. He gets an interesting lead. He goes to try to track him down, and so I'll let you figure out what happens there. We also get the cool little introduction to this world's Two-Face. I won't spoil who the character is, but I love that interaction that they had. There were several really interesting panels that led up into that origin story of this world's Two-Face, and there are some amazing fight scenes in just this one panel spread in particular where Thomas is dropping in the middle of this alley, lightning dropping behind him, there's rain everywhere, and he's stopping these thugs from attacking this family. Of course, it's very reminiscent of the infamous Martha and Thomas murder in the alleyway. So that was a really cool little homage there. And then, of course, that whole scene ends in a really interesting way when we have another one of the heroes show up to kind of stop him from doing what he's about to do. And I'm super excited to keep reading this one. So if you're a fan of Flashpoint in particular, but if you're a fan of what's going on in that whole universe and you wanted to see what would happen if they didn't set things straight, if they let things go on their current course, I think you're going to love this issue and love this series in general. This is one of my favorite DC books out right now. All right, next we're going to jump over into Dark Crisis, issue #1. I got that awesome like homage to Crisis at Infinite Earths right there. See if we can get it focused. It has all those different panels on it and things. I absolutely loved that as well. So Williamson is on this one as well. He's very, very busy right now. And I still really don't care about this event. We have a little bit more interesting issue here than we had in the past. We had a couple lead-in issues, we had a couple supplemental issues, things like that. But this being Dark Crisis #1, I was expecting some real answers and some real direction and some chaos and mayhem. And we did get a lot of that in here. We had a hint of this in some of the other issues. All the villains right now, all across the world, are hearing that the Justice League are dead. And what do you think they're going to do? They're all going to attack. There's going to be a power struggle and everything's going to just go to hell, right? So it's all these other heroes teaming up, getting together, trying to figure out what they need to do to keep the peace and keep everything under control. Of course, we get the Teen Titans Tower in here. They're trying to find some leadership. No one's really stepping up to the plate. Black Adam's around. He's kind of upset with all the different people that he sees around him right now. They need a real leader, and he hasn't quite figured out who that should be. And the person that should be has got their hands full right now over in the Titans Academy. So we have Jonathan Kent trying to put together like another Justice League, trying to recruit different people. So this is basically an issue of him going around asking people to join his new Justice League, and they all say yes or they say no for their own personal reasons. And you can't blame any one of them, right? They have their own battles, they have their own struggles going on right now. And if they leave where they are, their home places get smashed up, right? So it's a big problem. It's a big problem, and we're trying to figure it out still. I will say something very shocking happens in the last few pages of this issue, which has me pretty excited and nervous to see what we're going to have left in the next issue. And then the last couple pages, it really kind of confuses me a little bit. You know, we're talking about multiverse. We're talking about, is the Justice League really dead? We saw them kind of vaporize in the first a few issues ago, whatever that lead in was to this whole series. So I don't know. We're a little bit confused at what the actual state of the Justice League is, but we're trying to piece together a new team now across the world to kind of help with the chaos. And so not a bad issue. I think it's the best one so far of all the lead-in issues. So we'll see how strong this one continues to be in the next issue. All right, the next DC book we have is Batman Killing Time from Tom King. This is issue number 4. And oh boy, if you like the time jumps, and you're going to love this issue because it's more of that time jump action. We have the Help teaming up with Batman here and there. They're all trying to find basically the same thing, and they're all kind of putting their egos aside right now, kind of teaming up to get to find Riddler and Catwoman. So again, it's essentially just a big chase issue. We do meet who the buyer of this item is, which we still don't know anything about. We get all these time jumps, like thousands of years ago. There was this crazy chaos stuff that happened in the woods. This girl's like possessed and everything like that. And she brings home what she thinks is some kind of a trophy, but it's really not. And that whole thing is pretty confusing to me. I'm not really following what's going on there. I do like bits and pieces of this book, but like all these different time jumps are just so unnecessary. And this new character, the Help, he was interesting. We touch a little bit of his origin in this story as well, which I think is pretty cool. But I'm just tired of comics bringing in these new people who are just the best, right? Like you think Batman's the best, and there might be a couple other people here and there that you can name that are maybe more skilled than him. But this guy has never been around, I don't think, and he just kind of shows up and just wipes the floor with Bruce Wayne and knows everything about him, and he's been around forever. It's like, oh man, how many times are they going to bring a new character in, like Ghostmaker or something like that, right? Who are just the best of the best, you know? And so, man, it's an interesting story. It just has a lot of time jumps. The art's really fun. We'll see we'll see what it ends up being like. Whatever this artifact is, this has got to blow us away. I feel like we're on issue number 4. We still don't know what it is. It's small, compact in a small box, and it's blowing the minds of everybody. So if it turns out to be some kind of stupid thing, I think we're going to be pretty pissed off. So we'll see what it does. I don't know. We just have 2 more issues to go. Interesting art, interesting story, too many time jumps, can be confusing from time to time, but small sections, small scenes are pretty cool in this book. We're going to keep going. Batman Killing Time, issue number 4. All right, let's jump into Poison Ivy. This is issue number 1, G. Willow Wilson, and we also have Takara on the art. And I'll say I didn't have a lot of high hopes for this book, although G. Willow Wilson is very capable of making some compelling characters, and I do like the way that it reads, and I think it has a lot of like Swamp Thing kind of vibes to it. It's almost written in like a retrospective kind of a way, like if you're reading a journal or something like that. But Poison Ivy is on a mission right now, and again, she explains what that mission kind of is at the very end of Batman 124. So if you haven't read Batman 124, that ending story, I would check that one out first before getting into here. Now, I do have to admit, I kind of was fearing the worst reading this book. This book had 1,000 reasons why it should go in a different weird direction, I thought, that I wouldn't necessarily enjoy, but it actually was a compelling story. She's kind of on her own right now. She has this end destination, this mission that she's on. It seems like a solo one-way trip kind of a mission. And of course, she runs into some shady local people from place to place, and she has to take care of them in a real awesome, violent kind of a way, which I thought was awesome. We have some amazing paneling and amazing art in here as well. I'll flash you one little page right here of just some craziness that's going on. So yeah, there's some really epic stuff happening in this book. She's got a very interesting power set. She's kind of leveled herself up in a way, and you can read that in Batman 124, and it touches it in here as well. So I do like what I'm seeing in here. Again, the art's really nice. It's extremely colorful. Everything is very fluid and very weird. Again, it reminds me of Swamp Thing in a way, how it's being drawn right now and colored by Spicer and Perkins. And so I do really like that. Again, this book had 100 different moments where it could have went into a cringe direction, and I don't think it did at all. I was pleasantly surprised with Poison Ivy number 1, so I'm going to be sticking around for these. Let me know what you guys thought of it. All right, our last DC book is from Ram V and Christian Ward. We have Aquaman Andromeda, this DC Black Label. This also had a Brian Hitch cover, but I'm seeing too much of him in Venom right now. Too much for my comfort, so I went ahead and stayed away from that one. I'm loving this cover A right here because he's got like this like coral armor almost on here, and it's very, very colorful. Christian Ward does a really great job of just making everything pop and making everything seem really organic. And so I do like what I'm seeing there. Now, I'm not very familiar with Aquaman. I haven't read too many stories at all featuring him. He's always kind of been a background character. And so I didn't know what to expect with this one, but they found a really cool way of bringing him into the story. But the spotlight's not necessarily on him. We have this mysterious object that fell from the sky in this very, very remote area. And we have this team that's trying to make first contact, this human team in this experimental ship trying to make first contact. And they make first contact for sure, but it's not exactly what they thought was going to happen. We have a lot of references to the Kraken in here. And we have Aquaman kind of facing his own demons as well. He senses some kind of impending threat coming. He doesn't know how to perceive it necessarily, and he does come to the rescue here, so to speak. But I gotta say, I love these DC Black Label editions that do come out because they give you so much more room to play with the paneling, and it makes everything seem way more dynamic. You can stretch things out, and then you can also blend the different panels together, and it makes it just a way more enjoyable experience to read it in this format than it would your standard size comic. You can do a lot more creative things, I think, with this. So the color's really nice. It's got this like watercolory, foggy kind of a feel to it that Christian Ward lays on here. And I do like that. The human characters, their motive, their reason for being there makes total sense. It's mysterious. It's interesting. It's going out into the unknown and doing the exploring thing, which we can all relate to, which I thought was pretty cool. We don't get a ton of Aquaman in this first issue, but when we do get him, it's actually impactful and it's pretty interesting to see what he's able to do against this threat that they introduce in here. And yeah, I was just kind of blown away by the format, by the compositions, and by the coloring and the paneling and everything. And it's a pretty interesting story. So I'm definitely going to read it going forward. And, you know, Ram V, he's doing great work in this book here. Better work than he's doing over in like Venom and maybe even Carnage. I'm loving what I'm seeing here. The atmosphere, the vibe that you get in this book is very much Ram V. So I do appreciate that. And Christian Ward's doing a great job keeping up with that craziness. That's it with the big two. We're going to hop over into some indie books with Metal Society issue number 2. This is from Top Cow Image. We got Zach Kaplan and Balby on the art. And I'm telling you what, this is another great issue of Metal Society. The first issue was introducing us to the main issue with our lead female character and our main robot character about to square off. We had a little bit of a time jump to build up that female character and why she's in that position and what's kind of at stake and why they're going into the ring to fight each other. Now, this issue focuses on the robot's perspective, the different issues that he might have, what his day-to-day is like, what his job is like, what his home life is like. And again, these are robots that are pretty evolved and they have needs, they have wants, they have things that they're better at than certain other robots. They have different classes of robots built for different types of jobs. And so we understand the struggles of this robot. You're not really siding with one person or another. You don't necessarily want the humans to win once you see what's going on in this world as well. So I think that's a really interesting dynamic. There's not really a bad guy and a good guy. You know what I mean? We would typically side with the humans because obviously, but the robot doesn't have it that easy either in this issue. And we do explore what that's like from their perspective. We do quickly learn that the main robot and the main female do have a lot of similarities in their society. They're both not happy with where they are. They see this potential above them they just can't meet. Society's just not fair. Things are holding them back personally, and they feel like the only way that they can push forward is to win this match that's coming up soon. So I do really like what I'm seeing in this story. Again, it's really fun to not necessarily know who to root for in the story. And Balby, I think is his name, who does the art on here, does a really great job of portraying emotion inside of robots and just making the scene detailed and filling up every panel. I'm just really kind of sick and tired of reading comics and the panels and the background and everything are just blank or just white or a big shade of color. This guy actually takes a lot of time and fills in all the backgrounds, and then the colorists can do their job. It makes everything pop. It makes you more immersed into the story. So I do love that too. So again, a very strong contender for Book of the Month. I'm loving what I'm reading from Zach Kaplan. The next book we read is Twig issue number 2 from Scotty Young, and we also have Kyle Stram on the art. And I actually double dipped on this book because I loved the cover B with Peach Momoko as well. So I went ahead and picked up both of those because I just thought it was charming and I liked what I was seeing. So again, this is your typical call to adventure kind of a story. We have this character, he's kind of like an animal of some kind. It's a real fantasy kind of a world. It's his turn to do this kind of mission that his father used to do, who's passed away recently. He has to do this extremely important task. And so he's kind of figuring all this out still. He's actually late to his very first day, and he gets reprimanded for that. But the world, the fantasy world they live in, the art and the coloring that's in here is unlike any book I've ever seen before. So from a creativity, from a world building perspective, this book is awesome. I absolutely love what I'm seeing in here. The story is pretty generic, but I think it's going to touch everybody pretty easily just because of the nature of the call to adventure story. This guy, he's pretty much an amateur. He's trying to fill in some big shoes. He runs into some issues very, very quickly in this story, and he has to figure out what to do to get through this chaos, right? This book almost reads like a video game RPG that you might play. You have to bring this artifact to this guy. This guy needs some other ingredients to make this thing work, so he's going to go on this little adventure to try to get all these different things. If you stayed away from this because maybe it was compared to Kanto, I would say it's totally different, and you should hop in on this book. This book is very charming. The art style, the coloring, and everything like that is just perfect. It's got an RPG vibe. It's got a Lord of the Rings vibe even. It's got a lot of creativity and a lot of color and a lot of charm. It's got like a little Disney sprinkled in there too, but it's also very disturbing. Some of the monsters and things like that they introduce in here are just horrifying. And so I think it's really cool. I think it's creative. It strikes a good balance between just being playful and fun and colorful and being really disturbing at the same time. So yeah, I would check it out. If you're into that whole fantasy call to adventure kind of a story and you're looking for some awesome art, some great coloring, and some pretty engaging and funny characters, I would give Twig a try for sure, man. It's one of my favorite books out right now. The next book we read was The Ward from Dark Horse Comics, and we have Kevin Scott and Andreas Ponce, I believe it is, on the art. And so I picked this one up basically because of my background as a nurse. Anything ER related with monsters and demons seems right up my alley. And The Ward is basically this other realm that exists on top of Earth. It's actually a ER just for monsters, demons, ghosts, anything like that. And they are pretty creative with some of the people they bring in, which is part of the fun about having this kind of a comic. And it kind of reminds me of like a 9 3/4 kind of a Harry Potter situation. We have this specialized ambulance that picks up monsters and demons that are hidden in the real world, and it takes them essentially right through the brick wall, right into this other ER, and that's where all the fun starts. Our main character here is a physician that got out of this world to join the real world again, but she was forced to come back in because her neighbor was severely injured and she turned out to be a demon herself. So she has to kind of tag along with the ambulance, and she's brought right back into this emergency room. And this book is really fun. There's tons of different things going on in here. There's a lot of other physicians dealing with other patients, and they're trying to figure out the best ways to treat them. It's very fantasy based, and I do like that. There's some pretty cool monsters that you see in here. Yeah, it was just really fun to see how they're treating all these monsters and all the different techniques they have and the tools and the medicines. There's some fantasy elements in that as well. Another cool element is the staff themselves, the nurses and the doctors. They are monsters, demons, ghosts themselves, and so they actually use their powers in pretty creative ways to help their patients out. So I thought it was really fun. I thought it was an interesting ride. But yeah, if you see this one on the shelf, I would give it a shot. I would flip through it and see what you think of The Ward. If you read this one, let me know down below. The last book we read was ETER from AWA Upshot, and they're calling this one Volume 2, but I think it's issue number 2. ETER is comprised of 3 different stories. The first one's called Herd from John Lees. We have Precious Cargo from a writer called Coast, and we have Final Cut from Moore and Blake 2. Now, I'm not familiar with any of the other writers or artists on the other 2 stories, but John Lees is doing some amazing work, Hotel being one of them, and I wanted to pick this up just because his name was on the cover. A big departure from issue number 1, because in issue number 1, we were more focused in the ER itself, this imaginary hospital that was kind of underground, underneath everything, where aliens and things like that would be treated privately and away from the main public. But this one takes it out into space. They actually introduce different units that will travel out and take care of other threats in the area, whether it be viral threats or something like that, things that have taken over colonies perhaps. They're bringing those vaccines to them, and I thought that was pretty compelling. And the first story from John Lees really does a great job of explaining how that all works, the mechanics behind all of that. So I did like that a lot. That was pretty crazy and good. The second story was more about this like punk rock alien kind of a guy who's kind of a drug addict, and he has to go through some kind of a little procedure, and he's pretty much an ass, and the doctors kind of get a one-up on him. Patients can be really sarcastic sometimes and kind of a pain, and they can really resist treatment even though they know it's good for them and everything. And so it's always interesting to be a caregiver and trying to figure out ways of actually helping these patients who are just there to just self-destruct, you know? So I related to that a little bit, so that was a pretty fun little story. The last story is called Precious Cargo from Michael Coase. This is my second favorite story in this book, and it was essentially a story about an organ donor and this ambulance bringing that organ donor to a patient who's in need of a transplant and all the different issues they run into along the way. They have to fight through long space travel and their own bodies, their own biology, trying to stay awake for the whole thing. We have asteroid fields. We have just all the craziness that you can encounter in space. They're doing everything they could possibly do to get to the patient on time and get this precious organ to them. And sometimes things don't work out according to plan. I thought it was a pretty interesting book. It's not as good as I think the first issue, which came out, hell, I think last year at this point. And I wasn't expecting a whole different creative team and 3 short stories in ETER. And I don't think there's anything coming out as far as a volume number 3 or anything like that. But yeah, it was pretty fun. It was kind of like The Ward. I'm surprised they both came out at the same time. It's almost like when one production company comes out with a movie about the end of the world and the rivaling company has to put one out at the same time. I feel like that was what was going on with AWA and Dark Horse. But hey, I'll take it. It was a pretty cool run. So that's what I read this week, and that's what I thought about it. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any thoughts about the books I read, please put them down below in the comments. I really would appreciate that. And like, subscribe, share, hit that bell notification to be notified of future videos. I appreciate you watching. See you in the comments.